Hello. The title of this video is Why People Don't Want the Basic Income. And it's a very sad situation because we're supposed to live in a free market, but it's not a free market. And people are supposed to want the best for us, but probably, truly, they want the best for themselves. And that's why people don't want the basic income. Because the basic income would level the playing field, not only for maybe the so-called incompetents who can never make it, if that's even true, and I don't believe that for reasons I'll get to, but the basic income would level the field for everyone, and the people who unleveled the field and put in all the tricks, booby traps, who stole and connived their way ahead, they would have done all their crimes and mischief for nothing. But it goes even deeper than that, because people like parents, or people like social workers, or doctors, or politicians, or judges, or people in power, etc., don't want the basic income either. And they're supposed to work for everyone. But they don't want to help everyone because they're interested in themselves. And I don't want to blame people for being interested in themselves, because you have to be interested in yourself and love yourself and do right by yourself so you can do right by everyone else. The only problem is that we're living in a prison matrix system, at least for a lot of people. I mean, except for the people who are totally enlightened, maybe. But I'm totally enlightened, and I'm still in a prison matrix system. Anyway, why don't people want the basic income? Well, who votes and decides these things in the first place? They voted on the basic income in Switzerland, apparently, recently, and it was voted down. I think like 60 to 40 or 55 to 45. And I can probably guess why. It was voted down because, well, a lot of the voters are parents, I guess, and parents have been brainwashed into thinking that they have to get ahead and earn the biggest income possible so they can do right by their kids. If people didn't have to work for it and they just got free money, then I guess those parents conclude that it's not fair, and they would be doing all their work, and they would be total fools, while other people would get a free ride. But actually, the problem with that is that parents, when they have their children, and I'm sure they have their children for highly noble reasons, like creating new life and creating the future, which it is. And we need to have, I guess, as many children as possible, because there's plenty of room on the planet, and plenty of resources and plenty of food. Actually, unlimited resources, probably unlimited food. But we need to have more children, as many children as possible. But well, I reached a dead end there with my brain neurons. But parents are trying to do the noble thing and have their children and take care of them, they claim. But like from my experience, it seems like when parents have children and like maybe a few things go wrong, even though the children are only a few years old, the parents apparently start blaming the children for for anything that might go wrong, and then suddenly the parents are being dishonest to the children and lying to the children and and deceiving the children, trying to manipulate them into doing things in the best interest of the parents, and to in the what's in the parents' self interest, and the parents have forgotten what's in their children's self interest. So it's not surprising that as the parents, like, and usually I imagine from the looks of society that most parents, or at least a significant percentage of parents, are not good parents. Like, parenting is a problem. And of course, there are excuses. I mean, explanations. The explanations are that there's so much other shit stuff going on everywhere in society that the parents don't even have a chance to be good parents. And that's an argument probably for the basic income. Because, well, let me get back to why people don't want the basic income. They don't want the basic income because it would give power to the people they're trying to control. Like, parents are trying to control their children for their own self-interest again, because when they had the children, they discovered that it was better to think for their own self-interest than for the interest of their children, because they rationalized it, at least mostly psychologically, I guess. They made the excuse that doing what was in their own self-interest was also in the self-interest of their children, which is a very which is a big leap, but you can understand why they make it. Anyway, it's actually very sad. I'm trying to laugh, but it actually is funny. It actually is funny, but it's also actually really, it's very sad. So parents, at a certain point, at least most parents, or at least a large percentage of parents, the voters, part of the voters, I guess they're rejecting the basic income because they want to maintain control over their children for their own for the parents' own self-interest. They want to maintain control over their children. So and I contend that if we have a basic income, everyone should get it from age 0 on, because the way I view it is, from age 0 to 13, the children's basic income, which I guess would be like, I don't know what it would be, $15,000 a year, $25,000 a year. It would be invested in maybe an index fund of the global stock market, or maybe a balanced fund of stocks, bonds, cash, and precious metals, or or some very dependable and mischief-free investment portfolio. And maybe they could, well, I'm sure they could, I'm sure we could, do some interesting things from age 0 to 13. And also children could have also a basic allowance, while their basic income, most of it was accumulating from ages 0 to 13. Because then that would hopefully set them up for life, in terms of an investment portfolio, that the accumulation from age 0 to 13 would hopefully set them up for life. Uh, but I don't really know the specific economics of that or of the basic income. But I do know that our societies spend all sorts of money purportedly on our children and on everyone else, with welfare and everything, the subways and food stamps and so-called affordable housing and all this. Our societies all over the world spend inordinate amounts of money on everyone, children, adults, senior citizens, etc. But those people, the children, the average people, the senior citizens, everyone, they never get to control the money. We're spending all these trillions of dollars on all these people, everyone in society, the rich, average people, the poor, children, everyone, the disabled, whatever. But all of these people never get to spend that public money and never get to make the decisions for themselves how their share of the pie is spent. Their share of the public money is spent. So, as I've said before, and as libertarians have illustrated before, most of the entire thing is a scam. The politicians set up all these civil servants and public services in large part because they want those votes from those civil servants to continue to elect them over and over again into office. That's at least one of the reasons. That's at least an important reason. And the civil service and the whole government apparatus supports the government, supposedly. I mean, I'm not a political science PhD, but that's what people say, and that's what seems to happen. Including with the EU, and the EU administrators and executives, or at least certainly these executives, supposedly all their income and benefits and everything is totally tax-free, unlike the rest of the European people. The EU executives live totally tax-free. Anyway, but parents don't want, as I said, the basic income, because then if the kids had a basic income, then they would have much, much more freedom. Maybe they would have the freedom to leave whenever they want. And it is legal for kids to declare independence at age 15 in front of the court. So kids can leave the house at age 15 and start their life independently. The only problem is, as far as I know, as far as I was told, because obviously my mother was, I guess, clever enough to dissuade me from leaving at age 15, and it was a tremendous mistake on my part not to leave at age 15 and just start my whole life independently, because that's a genius move, which a lot of stars have made. But I guess parents are clever enough to dissuade their children from leaving early or running away, as they call it. It's not running away. It's getting away and starting your new life, and getting away from your crazy parents who want to destroy your life to save it and to make their own lives easier. But like I said, it's very sad. It really is very sad. But you can react to sadness two ways. You can cry about it, or you can laugh about it. Usually Asian people are purportedly Asian people they just laugh at tragedy because it's so absurd. Everything is so absurd. But so parents vote against the basic income because it's not in their self-interest. It's not in their self-interest to have their kids running around with wads of cash where they could buy art supplies, take martial arts lessons, take dance lessons, and have the freedom to make their own choices and be happy. And I guess that's partly because parents just make a snap decision and conclude sometimes that, oh, we have a bad kid or we have a problem kid and we don't want this kid to be happy. We're angry at this child. He's a bad child and we're going to get back at him. We're going to make his life as difficult as possible because we're so angry at the injustice of a child having problems as he develops as a child that we're going to come down on him and punish him for the problems that he or she has. And a basic income for our child would make things even worse. The child could just run away and leave us empty-handed. So that's in a small nutshell why parents, I suppose, are voting against the basic income. And it's similar to the reason why the rest of the majority has voted against the basic income and why the powers that be don't want the basic income. Because they're mostly concerned with themselves and their self-interest. Because like all the social workers, the doctors, the lawyers, the administrators, the private school directors and principals, the public school teachers and principals, is it in their self-interest that not only the kids would have the money to start a new life after they're 13? I mean, is it in their self-interest to liberate the kids and let them actually do what they want and pursue their dreams without approval from the teachers, the social workers, the doctors, and the courts and the politicians? These people are terrified of letting children actually have real lives, have productive, creative lives where they pursue their creativity and entrepreneurial dreams. These people are terrified of giving power to children, kids like teenagers, because they would completely lose all their control and all their power. And that's, like I said, people are interested in their own self-interest. So all these members of the system, or agents of the system, desperately want to keep their power over all these poor children, all these poor kids, and over everyone else in society. And also not only they want to keep their power over the kids and prevent the kids from actually becoming enlightened and productive and independent, but they also want to punish all those failures in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, all those failures who didn't make it from the start because they weren't born into rich families or good families. They want to punish everyone who didn't make it and didn't make a fortune or didn't have a successful career, just to make an example of them, to prove that some people are bad and some people are good, and people have to earn their stripes and earn their own keep. And we're living in a free market economy. There's a social contract I, I I've been to France. I haven't seen the social contract, but it looks like a social jerk off to me. But so and a social whipping to me. But they say there's a social contract. I apparently they're not following it, but and they're not following it in America either, and they're not following the Constitution either. But anyway, oh, and they can also pass unconstitutional amendments to the Constitution. So the Constitution was not of much use, some people say, when it was written, and it can be made of even less use with each amendment. But anyway, so people don't want the basic income, and life could be so beautiful. Yeah, the world could be so beautiful if people would only follow love. It's true. But people are driven so crazy, I suppose, by all the horrors and injustice and bullshit and hate and insanity, which goes along with these systems like fake capitalism, like so-called capitalism, so-called socialism, and so-called communism, that they're driven so crazy and full of hate by the insanity caused by the system that they're hateful, and they don't want to be good, and they feel like it's foolish to be good and foolish to be nice, or whatever, however you want to put it. It's foolish to be decent to people. So it's very sad. But everyone votes down the basic income because they feel that they would lose personal power and their self-interest would be threatened. And also they're brainwashed into thinking that it's not economic. And by the way, it isn't economic in a free market. It's not economic. A basic income is not economic in a free market. But I'd like to remind all of you, there are no free markets in the world. The world is basically dominated by governments, corporations, and the fraudulent racketeering banking system. And like many racketeering corporations and businesses. So, I wonder how much flack I'm getting for all these videos and articles, but I have to defend myself. I have to advocate for a basic income just for my own self-interest. For my own self-interest. Incredible. I have to advocate against my beliefs about the free market because I believe we should have a private free market. A free market, classical liberal, so-called free market anarchist, private free market system. But the powers that be will not allow that. So I have to advocate against a free market because we're not allowed to have a free market. So I have to advocate for the basic income. But like in a market which is not free, we need the basic income because otherwise people like me just get totally screwed because we have very problem parents who have so many problems from their past. And then when we're born and we develop maybe a few problems, or our parents lie about something we did to themselves, and then the parents start lying to us and totally screw us up from an early age, then we're left with nothing. We're left with a horrible situation. And because we have no basic income, we can't do anything. We're totally at the mercy of our parents and our surrounding family and community, who again are in it for themselves, totally in it for themselves, and they purport to be doing things in the kids' self-interest and my self-interest, and it's an utter lie. That's very sad. And like I have a happy face on it. Now I'm laughing about it because I've learned from the Asians that that's a good way to deal with it. It's been much better than crying about it and breaking your heart. So I laugh about it, but it's very sad. It's very sad. So people don't want the basic income because it would surrender their power over people without power, like for example the kids, and also the outcasts of society who never made it, because mostly probably because of their parents' problems from the past and their surrounding families' problems, or just because also, people have to understand that people develop at different times in their lives, and some people develop right away when they're born, like like some virtuoso musicians. And I know who I'm thinking of, but some virtuoso musicians, for example, like from the age of 2, 3, and 4, they're playing on a professional level as 3-year-olds or 4-year-olds, and they're virtuosos from the very beginning of their lives, and like that's a miracle that happens like to certain people. Just like some kids like go to college at age 13, like go to Harvard at age 13, or some kids know they want to be medical doctors from the age of 5 or whatever. But then there are other kids who, like, because of whatever small problems they might have, and or the problems of their parents and their surrounding family, and also maybe because they're also exposed to a bad kindergarten or grade school, grammar school experience, because the schools in America, a lot of them suck. A lot of American schools suck. A basic fact. But because of whatever reason, most kids do not develop right away. Like, the way the system is set up, most kids, theoretically, they'll graduate from high school and go to college, and then they'll get a job. Great. But that's the way the system is set up. So most kids will develop and mature by 18. I mean, or by, they'll go to college and go through college theoretically and graduate from college at 22, and they will be prepared and mature, and they'll just get a good job, and they'll live the American dream. Ha. But that's the way it's supposed to be. But a lot of people, like as I said, a lot of people don't develop by 22, not to mention by age 3 or 4 or 5. So, but it's like a lot of, like, some people develop at age 30, 40, 50. Like some people even don't develop until they're 90 or 80. I mean, the people, you read about the people who start running or doing sports in their 80s or 90s. Like these people only find themselves, apparently, or at least one aspect of themselves, in their 80s or 90s. But like this can happen. It's never too late, almost. I mean, it's usually never too late to start over or to do what you want or pursue your dreams, at least some of your dreams. It's never too late, usually. So people develop and mature and become enlightened at different ages. But again, because there's no basic income, most or a very, very large number of people never get the support they need at critical times for their development. When they have to make critical decisions, they're powerless, and everyone surrounding them has all the power. For instance, parents who refuse to help them when they need it because the parents believe or purport to believe that they're acting in their children's self-interest. So these are the reasons why people do not want the basic income, because they feel that they would be giving up their power in society and giving their power over to the so-called, well, the people they're competing against is a delicate way to put it. Or I don't know, they would be giving their power up to undesirables or the lower classes or the people without power. And since these people in power truly believe that in like a Darwinistic survival of the fittest, brutal existence, they believe that they would just be given a free ride to people they're competing against, other people, and that would be a foolish move. But as I pointed out in previous videos, the sad thing is that everyone loses, because if some people's lives are miserable, that radiates, that misery, that psychic misery radiates to everyone else, the rich, the elites. So what one person's misery makes everyone's misery, it increases everyone else's misery, and it just radiates throughout society. But the solution to that is not coming down even harder on that person or those people. The solution is actually helping them, or at least leaving them free to actually enhance and maximize their own lives and actually become enlightened, follow their dreams, start their businesses, pursue their creativity, entrepreneurship, etc. That's the solution for everyone. It's not to come down on them and like teach them a lesson and also punish them because they just had to do what they had to do, But the solution is actually to empower, or at least maybe not, empower them, but also leave them alone. But for them to have the freedom or the ability to actually make some decisions and to pursue their creativity, which actually creates and grows and enriches the world. Like if everyone is maximizing their creativity, potential, and work, that enriches the entire world. Because it's an interdependent economy and an interdependent society. That enriches the entire world. It radiates throughout the entire world. The commerce ripples throughout the entire world. The happiness radiates throughout the entire world. But so many people are scared. So many people are terrified. So many people are brainwashed and propagandized, including against the basic income. But again, it's not only sad, it's very dangerous. It can actually destroy things for a lot of people, and it just keeps stunting the world over and over again. Most people don't want the basic income because, as I said, they want to maintain their control, either over their children or their position in society, or their position as the elites. And also, they don't want the basic income because they're propagandized against the basic income. And they're told that it goes against basic economics and free market economics and economic law. The only problem is, as I said, the establishment doesn't follow economic law and does not support free market economics, which is the only legitimate economics. Because economics is about, micro decision making based on price points, and but the establishment just uses force and fraud and manipulation to override, micro decision making and price points. They just manipulate the prices on the markets if they have to, and they prohibit the micro decision making. So that's why we need a basic income. If we had a free market, everything would take care of itself, as the libertarians and the free market classical liberals have pointed out, and the free market anarchists, which is the same thing. We've pointed out that if we had a truly free market, at least free of virtually all government, forced regulation, that all these problems would take care of themselves. And just kids could just leave, and everything would be economic enough that kids could just leave and when they wanted to, and have enough food and clothing, because there would be plenty of charity, and there would be the schools run by the kids, like they had in the 1800s. They developed a school system which didn't even need teachers, and the kids just taught each other through different levels, and there was no need for a public school system with all those enormous costs. But so if we had a free market, we wouldn't need the basic income. We need the basic income because we don't have a free market. And I guess a good percentage of people succeed anyway and get a decent life, if you can call it that, after 18 odd years of hellish, the hellish school system, most of which is a complete waste. But also a very large percentage never make it. And then once they don't make it by age 22 or 25 or 30, they're judged as failures or whatever. And they're condemned to get no help whatsoever. And they don't want to take public assistance because it's disparaged in society. It's called welfare. But people have no choice. In the case of welfare, people have no choice because it's not a free market. So people are locked into this matrix, and they're disparaged for taking welfare or food stamps. But what other choice do they have? Because it's not a free market. Even charity is not allowed. Charity is totally regulated. The hospitals are totally regulated, and the whole thing, all of them are monopoly. The stock market is regulated, and most of everyone is excluded. So that's why we need a basic income, because it's not a free market. It's a totally corporate, government, bankers dominated scam system, and that's why we need a basic income, just to give everyone a fighting chance. Especially in my mind, because like I was dissuaded from leaving when I was 15, and that was a terrible decision to buy that on my part. And I'm also responsible for a lot of things that didn't happen in my life, and I freely admit that. But I also insist that I'm not responsible for everything. I'm not responsible for 100% of my problems, because at least 50% of my problems were caused by all the other shit around surrounding me, like a problem family, a problem society, a problem government and bureaucracy, a very criminal and problematic banking system and financial system and tax system and school system, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Oh, medical system, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and legal system and lawyers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So if I had had the basic income when I was 0 to 13 and 13 plus, I would have been set. And I could have made my own decisions on a lot of things, and things probably would have been much, much better. And that's why people do not want the basic income, because people are basically egocentric, selfish, and also very, very hateful or fearful against people who they don't understand, disagree with, or are in opposition to. So humans are still humans, and they still have all these same human frailties. And we are living in a controlled matrix system, controlled by the establishment and the powers that be, whoever they are, including the politicians and the elites. And this is why we need the basic income so desperately, in my opinion. And even Donald Trump, President Trump, and I hesitate to say President Trump, but not because I don't like Donald Trump. I admire Donald Trump as a success, but I don't really admire the governmental matrix system, starting with the presidency and whatever. But I think Donald Trump in the 80s wrote a book about like the basic income, or I think it was about the tax system, and how it was not about the basic income, but about the tax system, how all income up to $15,000 should be tax free, and then everything after $15,000 to $50,000 should be 15%, and then everything after $50,000 should be 30% or something like that, or 20%. But yeah. So all these solutions have already been, thrown around. But most people vote against the basic income because they don't want to give up their personal power, and they're also brainwashed against the basic income because they're brainwashed into thinking that it's a free market and a free society, and people actually always have the ability to make it on their own, which sadly is not the case. There's a lot of people who, because of social, family, or historical circumstances, maybe were always locked out of doing what they needed to do for themselves, or currently locked out of doing what they need to do for themselves. And the basic income inside of the matrix system would solve a lot of those people's problems. And that's exactly why most of the people are brainwashed or decide against voting for the basic income. So it's very sad, but we cannot give up. Giving up is not an acceptable choice for anyone. So that was my video on the basic income. And I hope the basic income is passed and that it's implemented for everyone from age 0 to 13 to infinity. because presuming that we keep presuming that we don't really get a truly libertarian free market, at least big L libertarianism, with the government just running the national defense, court system, and police. But because if that was the case, we probably would not need the basic income, or would need much less of a basic income. But in the current, totally monopolistic government force, government coercion, corporate monopoly, banking monopoly system, we absolutely need the basic income. And that's why I made this video, to explain why we're not getting the basic income yet, because even parents, as I explained, are terrified of giving their children a basic income. And like allowances, from my own personal experience, allowances and money and all that is just a never-ending nightmare for many families. It is for mine. So that's why in the current matrix system, I support the basic income, and that's why the basic income hasn't passed yet, because it would help a lot of people that society doesn't want to help, or that parents don't want to help. And that's exactly why those people don't support the basic income, but that's exactly why we need the basic income. So thank you very much for listening. And I'm never sure how many people are listening, but thanks to, you can never assume anything on the internet, as I've said, and you never should assume anything on the internet. And I'm sure there's much more to the story, and there's a lot that I haven't been able to tell you, and there's things that I'm not able to tell or explain to people, because it's just too complex and impossible to explain, and people wouldn't understand anyway. But I'm convinced we need the basic income. It wouldn't really help me in my stage of life. It would help me definitely, but if I had had it when I was 15, when I had to make those decisions, if I had had it when I was 20 and 25, when my family was failing to support me in the decisions I had to make the moves I needed to make for my life, that's when I really needed the basic income, and it wasn't there. And I had no help from anyone. And I was in a very, very unhappy state. Plus, I had no help from anyone, especially the people surrounding me. They were not only not helping me, but, sabotaging me in all sorts of ways. So I needed the basic income, and it wasn't there. So thank you very much for listening. This is Nic Leobold, and I have not yet been able to set up Nic Leobold Live because, as I said, I don't have the basic income, and the people surrounding me are not only not helping me, but attacking me every chance they get. So I truly need the basic income, but it could have helped me much more when I was 15 and 20 and 25. Thank you very much. See you next time.